once again. We know for a fact that the passive voice is normally used in technical reports, scientific reports, and in science-based materials. In such reports, the emphasis is placed on the receiver of the action and not on the doer. This skill in using the passive voice is needed by our students in writing their reports and in interpreting graphs and charts. Why don't you join me as we watch a teacher conduct a class session on the teaching of the passive voice? Note that she teaches this grammar point in an integrated manner. That is, she integrates the various skills in her lessons.
Okay, class, take a look at all these things on the table. Can you see them all? Would you like to name each one of them? Okay, Gian.
This is a birthday card. This one is a fan. These two are envelopes. This one a newspaper. This one is an onion skin paper. And the last one is a piece of tissue paper.
That's right, Gian. Can you see what they're all made of?
They're all made of paper.
Okay. Wait. Would you like to feel them or touch them? Come on, feel the texture of them.
This one's thin.
Okay, that's thin.
This one's thicker than the other one.
This paper is very smooth.
What others?
This one's quite tough and it's hard to tear up.
Yeah. Your observations are all correct. And I would say that they have, yes, they may be the same in terms of texture, but they have one basic commonality. What they're all made of. Yes.
Ma'am, some of them come from plants and trees. However, some also come from insects and chemicals.
That's good, John. How did you get to know all those things?
Oh, I read about them in some periodicals and books.
That's very good, John. Now I'll let you listen to an article on paper, and I want you to listen very carefully. Write down notes and take down key phrases, because after listening, I'll be asking you to reconstruct your notes and try to come up with something close to the original. Okay, instructions clear? Are you ready? Okay.
People knew how to write long before they had any paper. For thousands of years, they wrote on such things as bark, bricks of soft clay, skins of animals, and pieces of broken pottery. People might have had paper much earlier than they did if they watched the paper wasps. These wasps make their nests of paper. To make the paper, they first chew wood into a pulp. Then they spread the pulp out in a thin layer to dry. Much paper is now made of wood, but no one found out how to make paper of wood until long after paper was first made. The first paper was made in China about 1,800 years ago. The Chinese might have gotten the idea by accident. The women of China often washed their clothes in pools. When they rubbed the clothes, they rubbed off little threads of fibers. Perhaps some of these fibers were washed up on a rock and were dried by the sun to form a thin sheet. At least the Chinese found out that they could make paper from cotton or linen rags. They found, too, they could use fibers from the bark of trees.
Wasn't that an interesting way of presenting the lesson? Let's review the steps the teacher went through so that she could introduce the lesson. First, she made the class see and examine objects displayed on her table. What technique did she employ then? She made use of what we call realia, a technique which calls for the use of real objects. Then, she asked the students to touch and feel the items. This way, she was able to gather reactions in a natural manner on the different kinds of paper used. Then she made them listen to the text on the same topic, so the students could take down notes and so that they could reconstruct a close version of the original passage. What skills have been developed so far? If you said primarily speaking and listening, you're right. Observe too that the teacher has introduced the concept of the passive voice as early as the first stage of the lesson. There is one important thing to remember in introducing a new language point to your students. Present it in context. Further, the context for introducing the language should have 3 characteristics. First, it should show what the new language means and how it is used. This is the reason why many useful contexts have the new language being introduced in a written text or dialogue. Second, a good context should be interesting to the students. This doesn't mean that the subject matter we use for presentation should be extremely funny or inventive all the time, but the students should at least want to see or hear the information. Lastly, a good context will provide the background for a lot of language use so that students can use all the information not only for the repetition of model sentences, but also for making their own sentences. Now that we have explained the significance of contextualizing the presentation of a new language point, let's move on to the rest of this integrated lesson. This time, we will see the teacher following up on the notes the students have taken down. Let's find out how they have approximated the original passage.
Okay, very well. I think you've done your version of the passages. Now can we hear your work? Okay, let's try the first paragraph. Patrick.
People in the past did not use paper in order to write. They wrote on barks of trees, clay, animal skin, and broken pots.
Wow, that's good, Patrick. That's very close to the original. Now let's try the second paragraph. Yes, Arnold.
Ma'am, wasps make paper. They first chew wood into a pulp, then they dry the pulp. That is why today much paper is made of wood.
All right, that's also very good. You were able to say in just a few words the very substance of the second paragraph. Now let's try the third paragraph. Yes, GK.
The Chinese made the first paper thousands of years ago by accident. The Chinese women rubbed off a lot of little threads of fibers while washing clothes. These fibers were washed up on a rock and were dried by the sun to form a thin sheet.
Very well. I can very well see that you actually understood the passage.
You must have observed how the students fared in approximating the original version of the passage. They were indeed very good at taking down notes through listening, weren't they? Before we take up the rest of the lesson, why don't we pause for a short break?